Welcome to If People Only Knew, the show that brings untold stories to light. I'm your host, Anna Matson. Let's get started. Before we jump into today's episode, I really felt compelled to do a little disclaimer before we hop in. I am interviewing Anthony Hudson, who says he's running for governor. And as I was editing the episode, I noticed some things that I do and some things that kind of came off wrong. And I just wanted to address it from the get so you know where I stand. First, I noticed that I say yeah and mm-hmm a lot, even if I don't agree with him. But it sounds like I agree with him. So I think I just do that to acknowledge that I'm listening, not that I agree. So please remember that as the episode goes on. There's definitely some things I agree with him on, but I think a majority I don't, honestly. But I want this to be about you. I want you to make your own independent thoughts. So do not let me and my opinion sway you, especially when it comes to how you vote. Now, the next thing I want you to keep in mind, not just with him, with any candidate, I want you to ask yourself if the candidate can even do what they are saying they are going to do. And we talk about this a lot in today's episode. Anthony Hudson got really big really fast because he says he wants to end property taxes. And as you can see or listen in this episode, as I kind of challenge him a little bit, he thinks that he can just sign an executive order and property taxes go away. But that's not how government works. That would definitely have to be an act of Congress. A lot of people don't realize how much actually gets paid for through our property taxes. A lot of your local stuff is paid with property taxes, like your trash removal, your police, just your schools. So that money doesn't just go away. It has to be paid for somehow. And so really what I believe he's advocating for, and you can ask him yourself, is really just a redistribution of taxes. So yeah, you might not pay property taxes, but your state income tax would have to go up to afford these things. So just keep that in mind. This is like with anything. Even just recently, DOJ at the federal level is saying, we're cutting this, we're cutting that. DOJ cannot cut anything. DOJ is a part, not really even, they're an advisory group to the executive branch. DOJ can identify waste, but they cannot cut waste. Congress, so your House of Representatives and your 2 senators per state, are the ones that decide the budget. So right now, the House is looking to either keep our taxes, our budget the same, or actually increase it. They're not actually looking at cutting. So we're kind of all distracted with DOJ right now, but kind of forgetting who actually holds the power to actually make a change in terms of how much our government spends. There definitely is some discretionary spending with the executive branch, but mainly the executive branch just has to carry out whatever budget Congress sets. So they're the ones that we should really be paying attention to. What else? There's one more thing. I'm looking at my phone because I just want to go through my notes real quick before, like I said, we jump into this episode. Okay, so Hudson repeats that we need to know where money is going in government. And of course, but I just wanted to note that a lot of this information is already public. So for the state of Michigan, you can go to the Michigan website, literally type in state of Michigan budget on Google, and it should come right up for you. And you can look through what we spend, what we take in, and what we spend. Obviously, there's fraud in government. But just an example of this is, it seemed like breaking news that DOJ found that there were contracts with Politico. The federal government was paying Politico. And that was already public information. You could actually just go on, I think it's usaspending.gov, and actually find those contracts. So it wasn't really like breaking news. You could already find it. It's just no one's ever really looked before and publicized it. So I just wanted to make that known, that a lot of this stuff is public, just not enough people are going to search for it. But I believe that's what I have so far. Like I said in my beginning episode, you know, I'm learning right now. I did not go to school for journalism. I went to school for marketing and business. So I'm kind of learning as I go. So I'm going to be definitely mindful of me kind of saying, yeah, and stuff. Like as other people are talking, I'm going to try to just kind of stay silent as my guests are speaking and maybe just nod my head so they know that I'm listening. And yeah, I'm just going with the flow, learning as I go. And the other thing, if you watch these episodes, I noticed that my posture gets really bad towards the end of the episode and I start to slouch and the microphone covers my mouth. And that would frustrate me watching an episode. And, you know, a lot of people read lips. So I am definitely going to be more mindful of that and keep the microphone away from my mouth at all times so you can actually see my lips moving. So if there's any other, you know, suggestions you have as time goes on with these episodes, please let me know. I definitely want to be mindful of everyone, but thank you so much. And let's get into today's episode. Okay. Welcome to the show. We very briefly met just a few days ago. This is Anthony Hudson. You are a Republican candidate, right?
I am.
For Michigan governor. We still are like 2 years out, but well, I guess less than 2 years at this point.
About a year and a half.
Yeah,
you know, from now.
It's gonna get here fast. So I just thought it would be so interesting just to get to know you a little bit. I will say I am not someone that gives endorsements or anything. I think we're all big boys and girls. We can get information and make decisions for ourselves.
Right.
So I just would love for people to have options, you know? So yeah, let's just get into it. I would first just love to hear your background, like I don't know, like where you went to school, family, like just get to know you.
Well, I'm originally from Texas, born and raised.
Big difference from
Big
Michigan.
difference. I mean, landscape-wise, Michigan and Texas have a lot in common with the outdoors, the hunting, the fishing, camping, hiking. Lots to do in Texas. And as a kid growing up, we lived right down the street from Willie Nelson. My father used to pick a 12-string guitar, and they would play bluegrass music on Friday nights. And Willie's daughter, Jody, and I used to run around the fields and ride four-wheelers. And, you know, it's Willie, so there's other things going on at Willie's house. But it was a fun upbringing. My family was as grassroots blue-collar as you can get. My father owned sand and gravel business. My mom worked at a bank. Didn't have much money back then, but life was more pure, in my opinion, than it is now. Being a father now, seeing how I raised my children with video games and technology and the lack thereof going outside to play and ride bicycles and be gone all day, it just doesn't happen anymore. So big difference in the upbringing. My mother passed away 9 years ago of cervical cancer. My father is still in South Texas with dementia, and he's 76, so he's getting up there. I have a couple uncles left, a lot of cousins. That's one thing my family was good at was making cousins and babies. So, I grew up there. I went to high school, played football in the state of Texas, which is every bit of what you hear about with Friday Night Lights and how important the game of football is in Texas. Played basketball, baseball, ran track, set a couple high school records in track for high jump. 6'8" as a freshman, and I was 6'2". I weighed about 60 pounds less than I do now. So, very much into athletics and just your average run-of-the-mill kid. And I ended up moving to Florida, met my ex-wife there. We had our children, and then the economy, if you remember, 2009, 2010, 2011, the banks were crashing. They were getting all the bailouts from the government. Things got tough, and it added stress on a lot of families, and we were one of the marriages that didn't survive that. So she moved back here, which is her home.
Oh, okay.
And I moved here to be a father. at the time because my kids were 3 and 1.
Oh, okay.
Now they're 16 and 14. Just started driving last week.
That's scary.
Very scary because the January baby with snow in Michigan makes it even harder to let go of the reins a little bit. But came here to be a dad. I've been a truck driver since 2001. I got my CDL when I was in the Army. I signed up 2 days after 9/11 happened.
Wow.
I felt a calling in that moment to serve my country and kind of pay back the black eye that we received from that. And when I got out of the service, I continued to drive truck, and I brought that here to Michigan. And in 2014, I started my own trucking company.
Oh, wow.
And 3 years ago now, 2022, I decided that I was going to get into politics because I'm tired of living under the bad decisions that elected officials make for us. Mm-hmm. They don't have our best interests at heart. They don't care about us as people. They just want our money.
Yeah.
And they'll find any and every way possible to get that money, no matter what the struggle brings on the family.
Yeah, I wish someone would, maybe it's out there, maybe I'll do it one day, to study how much of our income actually goes to taxes because, I mean, you breathe and you're taxed for something.
Right.
Right? So it's pretty crazy. I would say at least half of our income, at least, is going to taxes somehow, some way.
And one thing that we want to implement is a zero tolerance spending bill, which would force us to conduct quarterly audits on the government every quarter and then publish the results to the public on the state's website. Let the people see where their money is going. I want to know what I'm paying for. I used to smoke. I quit smoking a few months ago. Cigarette tax, tobacco tax, alcohol tax, the gambling tax, the weed tax. All of those things were supposed to be going to schools and highway repairs and all these other places, and it just seems like it's not happening. And I did some numbers. 2019, Gretchen Whitmer was in office. We had a $9 billion surplus.
Yep.
And our budget was $51.3 billion a year, comparable to the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. In 2024, our budget was $86.5 billion, and we were broke. Mm-hmm. Now Whitmer's trying to do a 40% tax increase across the board to get more of our money because she spent our money on her national book tour, which I think is ironic because our children can't read in school, and she's out there trying to promote a book. Promote books in our schools. Yeah. Start teaching traditional education. Stop the indoctrination in our schools. People are saying, well, if you do what you want to do, and we'll get into it with property taxes, how are we going to fund the schools? Grand Blanc High School just spent almost $100 million on an athletic facility, and they need money? Mm-hmm. No. If you've got $100 million for an individual school, you should be using that for education first.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with playing on a grass football field. That's what I played on. I thought it was amazing. And our new field, the AstroTurf, is beautiful, and it sits a lot of people, and they do a lot of fun activities for the school there. But when I look at the fact that just recently we had a scare, somebody threatened a gun at school. Well, don't you think $100 million could go to preserve the school's safety and keep our children safe while they're there?
Yeah, and one of the things that was cut out of all things, like the budget went up pretty much in every department, but two things got cut that I know of this last budget cycle. That was the auditing department. So literally the independent entity that actually audits Whitmer's office. Right. That budget got cut. And school safety and mental health services got cut by 90%.
That's right.
And the Oxford school shooting, that hit home not only for people all across Michigan, but the country. That really hurt communities all around. And the response to that, instead of increasing school safety services and mental health services, you cut them instead by 90%.
90%.
That is insane to me.
It is, because Oxford could have been avoided. The school did the right thing by notifying the parents that there were some issues with their child. And the school recommended come pick up your son,
Yeah.
Because of these issues. And the parents said no. And 4 hours later, history unfolded in Oxford. Then we had the Michigan State shooting.
Yeah.
I know that's a different generation, but it shouldn't have happened. And the guy had a note in his pocket, a list of other places he was going to visit. We don't have a gun problem in the United States of America. We have a mental health issue.
Yeah.
And with the current DNR administration completely going against what they are existing for, the preservation of our Great Lakes, our forest, and our wildlife, they're choosing to cut down the forest, kill the wildlife, and put up solar panels. Well, under my administration, we would cut them in half. We would cut the DNR in half and force them to start getting back to what it is they're there for. The money we save from cutting the DNR, we want to start a free mental health policy for the state of Michigan. So anyone in the state of Michigan that needs mental health services, we'll take the money we already collect and put it towards something useful, because we all struggle with some sort of mental health in today's economy. A lot of people are depressed. They have anxiety. They don't know what they're going to do. They're financially strapped. They're working 50 hours a week. They can't afford health care. Their auto insurance is through the roof. And now eggs are $8 a dozen, And
there's like a full-on attack on eggs right now.
Eggs, exactly, a full-on attack. And it's just one more thing that the government is weaponizing against us. And if we don't pay them, they come after us. And, there's 330 million Americans in this country, and there's 1,800 elected officials in Washington. And the only way they can control all of us is either by fear-mongering tactics, financially strapping, or keeping us in the dark so that we don't know what's going on. That's why lies exist. It's been said to me, Senator Runstad, who's running for the MyGOP chair, has told me that the one thing you can't find in D.C. is the truth. And that's the truth. And I think that's relative, in Lansing as well. I think there's so much going on both sides of the aisle that we need change. And I'm not a big philosopher, but I do believe in a statement that Gandhi made years ago, way back in the day. If you want to see true change in the world, you have to be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
And that motivated me to step up and run for office. And I ran I thought it was successful campaign for U.S. Congress last year. We lost in the primary to Paul Young, who's well-known. He's been running for 6 years. But we made a lot of headway, and we made a lot of contacts. And there are people from all over the state asking me to run for governor. And once we hit over 100,000 requests for that, we said, okay, that's a start.
Yeah.
That is a start. And if 100,000 people help spread the message, it'll turn into 3 million in a few months.
Yeah, I ran for local office in my town, and I did not want to. I really did not dream of it or anything, but I had so many people come up to me and say, like, you need to run.
Right.
Like, you're the only one that can do it. Now, I ended up losing my campaign because it was a 3-way race because it's nonpartisan. But people kind of knew where we stood on the political spectrum anyway. So I was running up against 2 incumbents, and that's like you just talked about, like, it's like impossible.
Right.
It's really hard because most people vote on name recognition and that alone. So, and that's usually incumbents have that name recognition just from their service. So I lost my election by 29 votes, but I was still able to inspire so much change in such a small amount of time that so many issues I talked about, like water not being affordable. Well, now suddenly they formed a committee to look at water prices.
That's right.
And then I brought up the fact that our holding cells have been down for like 12 years. And all of a sudden they're fixed in a couple months. And it's like, yeah, you literally would never have paid attention to that unless I brought it up and ran on it. So it's funny, like, even if you can't win, like, there's still a lot of ways you can inspire change. I have followed RFK Jr. very closely, and it's just so funny because he's been talking about food dye and stuff and the
Right.
harms of it forever. And now all of a sudden, the Biden administration, week before Biden's leaving office, bans red food dye.
Yeah. Coincidence? Oh, I don't know.
Just to take credit for it. So when did you move to Michigan, you said?
2011.
So do you consider yourself a Michigander?
I do. This is home. This is where my kids are. We go to school. We've invested in our community.
Yeah.
I'm planning a retirement here. This is where I'm staying.
Yeah.
Getting involved in community efforts, donating time to help, running for office. It should show the people that my boots are firmly planted here in Michigan.
Yeah.
My kids are talking about going to local colleges here, so that even further keeps me here because I just have this incredible bond with my children that my ex-wife lives a quarter of a mile down the street. We live in the same subdivision. I don't even sleep well when they're at her house because I miss them so much. So having them in the same state is a huge relief for me. They were both born in South Carolina, and my oldest son goes, if I can't get into Michigan State, Dad, I might go to Clemson. I'm like, well, I could go back to South Carolina. That was a beautiful place. I like South Carolina. But he really wants to stay here. He's got a lot of cousins here on his mom's side, and my youngest son wants to be like me. He goes, Dad, if I could be like you or be like Ronald Reagan, I'd be all right. I could be an actor, and I could run in politics. And he's been in the Flint Institute of Arts for 7 years now, taking drama classes and doing plays and skits and things like that. So that's really the avenue he wants to take, be a producer, an actor, a screenplay writer, whatever. But he goes, I want to be like, and he looks just like me. He's a little bigger than me right now though, but he looks just like me and wants to be just like his dad. And that's probably the biggest compliment to me as a father, is that my kids want to grow up and be around me and be like me. So
that's awesome.
Politics is tough. They hear a lot of negative things. People like to hide behind their keyboards and keyboard commanders, but yet I've actually encouraged them. I'm like, I'm in Grand Blanc. You want to say that to my face? Come say it to my face. No one ever shows up. No one ever does. I mean, I was brought up in that era where you stand your ground. And if you lose with dignity. You lose with pride. I lost my congressional race, and I never left the scene. Anyone else, John James, for example, ran a few years back and lost and disappeared. Didn't do anything. Had no comments about Trump and the steal of the election or any. Had no comments. And then he ran for Congress and won and just changed his platform. And that's not the kind of guy I want to be. My grandfather was a big part of raising me. He's a highly decorated World War II hero. And he always said, tell the truth. Your handshake is your word is your bond. And if you let any of those go, you have no integrity.
And honestly, that's a big reason I've gotten into politics, because I can't stand when people lie. It's my biggest pet peeve.
That's right.
So I love exposing when politicians lie, and they make it so easy because they lie all the time.
They lie all the time. And I don't know if that's part of my success so far. You were seeing on TikTok how people were commenting about me when this guy was talking about Nesbitt.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So, let me mention that real quick. So, how I found you is I'm scrolling on TikTok, and there's this guy, I think he works for a Michigan senator, and he said the day Eric Nesbitt is his name, I think, when he says he's going to run for governor, this guy posts his video and says, I 100% endorse him.
Right.
And I went to the comment section to be like, don't you think it's a little early for an endorsement? Like, this is like the first Republican in the race. And everyone in the comments, everyone had your name written.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're done with these lifetime politicians. And I looked into him a little bit, and yeah, he pretty much is a lifetime politician. He was a lawyer for a few years, but then has just been in Congress and stuff. So, that's just how I found you. And I said, okay, well, obviously people see something in you, so let's just have a conversation. And honestly, I'm so sick of the parties telling us who we need to vote for.
Right.
Harris was just anointed, and now it looks like Jocelyn Benson is going to be the same exact way. So she hasn't announced her run yet, but it's pretty obvious that she is going to run for governor. And Mike Duggan, the Detroit mayor, he's running as an independent.
But he is a Democrat.
He's 100% a Democrat.
100%.
100%. And he even supported Harris. But I'm assuming the reason he did that is because the Democratic Party has already anointed their person, and that's going to be just Jocelyn Benson. So he probably looked at it and said, okay, well, since they've already got their person, I might as well just run as an independent. That's the only chance I'm going to have.
Well, see, if I was Mike Duggan, I would look at that as an opportunity, because Benson has dug her own grave with the Secretary of State. She's done enough wrong by the people that I would encourage that fight with her if I was a Democrat. Let's not forget Sheriff Swanson in Genesee County. Whitmer loves him. The Democrats love him. He is a face on social media because of what he did during Black Lives Matter. I think he's a horrible politician. I've seen his commercials on TV supporting Biden. And if you support Bidenomics and the failure of this country and the illegal immigration and all of the things that have gone wrong in the last 4 years, and stand up and say, everything's okay, then I don't need you. I don't need you representing me. You're a great sheriff. He does a great job with the Genesee County Sheriff's Department. And the one thing I've noticed when I see him on YouTube or on social media is he's always by himself. Just like Whitmer, when she posts her content on X, she's always by herself. Where's her people at? Where's her ride or die? And
I always say I wish she had to clock in and out, because I think she works out of the state more than she's even in Michigan.
Absolutely.
Like she runs a super PAC, which I don't know how that's not a huge conflict right there. You're governor and you're running a super PAC. Yeah. Like, come on. And she also ran Biden's campaign. She was like co-chair of his campaign. She's also the DNC vice president or something like that. And your governor. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? And she wrote a book and everything too. It's like, yeah, you can have a life outside of work, but like, how many hours are you actually working as governor?
Well, it's on record that the state Senate and House worked 55 days last year. And when I spoke with the Abate convention last night, I made it abundantly clear that I'm all for part-time legislation. You don't need to be making $70,000, $80,000 a year. You need to be making half that. Kentucky does part-time legislation, and those reps make about $30,000, $40,000 a year, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. There's other incentives. If a state rep or a senator or a House rep go to a town hall meeting or whatever, they get paid like $1,000 just to show up and give a speech. So there's other ways for them to make money. But it was very evident in the Constitution that politics was not supposed to be a career. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's a come in, serve your term, go back to your normal life.
Yeah.
Let the younger people come up and do their thing, because life is forever changing, right? You look at my generation to your generation, cell phones and technology, the internet were coming into play in my teens, and now it's everywhere. So we've had to adjust to that, right? Older folks, I don't know. They have to learn to use the internet. They have to learn to use Facebook. They have to learn to do all these things, because life is not ran the way it was back then. And I think government should always stay young and up to date with the current way of life.
I watch a lot of congressional hearings like this. I report, lately I've been reporting on the confirmation hearings for Trump's cabinet. And man, I have to put it at 2 times speed, because these old people, they just talk so slow. And I'm like, dude, it really is true. Like, our Congress is the most expensive nursing home.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders last year fainting and passing out, not knowing where he was. Joe Biden falling down all over the country. And, it is. It is the most expensive nursing home.
I think that there is a beauty in a mix of things. Like, I think the wisdom of the old and the fire of the young can come together and do beautiful things. But yeah, it's just there's too much old right now. And honestly, a lot of that is on the voters. Like, we vote these people in. So there is a responsibility of voters to step up. If, like, the best term limit you have is voting day. Like, if you don't want people to be lifetime politicians, you need to get out and vote. And that's just the hard truth. But it's not going to change if people keep voting on name recognition.
Yeah.
Because the people who have name recognition are the Nancy Pelosi's and the Bernie Sanders, and like, it doesn't matter. Both parties do it. So whoever it is, like, just get out and vote them out.
Right. If I had my way, and I know by saying this, people are going to say, oh, he's a radical or he's a dictator. No, if I had my way, I would remove the D or the R from a name on a ballot.
Yeah.
I would want to look at who's got my best interest, my family, my future, and my paycheck in their best interest so that I can be successful. The United States is the land of opportunity. It's the home of the free, right? The land of the free, home of the brave. But when you financially strap us with all these taxes, you are holding us back. We are only as successful as the government will allow us to be. And that's a complete contradiction to what Ronald Reagan said in the 80s when he made a comment that he said, our government is the car and the people are the driver. We tell it where to go, how fast to go, and what route to take to get there.
Yeah.
Because our Constitution tells us that we tell the government what it's allowed to do versus constitutions all around the world that tell the people what they have to do. There's a big difference there. And until the people say, I've had enough, until the people say, I'm not going to fight you because you're a Democrat or an independent and I'm a Republican, I'm going to stand with you to promote the constitutional republic that we are. We're not a democracy. We practice democracy under the guidelines of a constitution. And we've gotten away from that. Red flag gun laws that passed in Michigan, a complete violation of the state and the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, and I mean, I still saw recently that someone who had their guns taken away because of the red flag laws still got a gun and went and attempted to kill his ex-girlfriend and her son or something like that. And thankfully, they had a gun and were able to stop him. But I don't know. I kind of go back and forth with some gun control here and there, but the more I think about it, it really is just a mental health problem. If you look at the data, gun ownership has largely remained steady over the past like 40 years. So there's not an increase in guns, but obviously there's an increase in shootings. So the guns aren't causing it. It's definitely like the deterioration of mental health goes in line with the rise in mass shootings.
Right.
So that's something that we really need to look at.
And I saw a billboard the other day, and I don't know if you've heard this before or not, but if guns kill people, then pencils misspell words and spoons make people fat. We could set a weapon right here on this table pointing at your husband, and it will not do a thing without the human element. Period. It's an inanimate object, and inanimate objects don't work without human touch.
Yeah.
Right? I don't feel, and like you said, this woman, they had a weapon to fend off the gentleman, right? That's why we have the Second Amendment. We have the ability to protect ourselves. And living just outside of Detroit, what was Detroit like in the 80s? I mean, it was a horrible, dangerous place, and the black market doesn't care about the law.
Yeah.
People don't go to the black market and do a background check to get a fully automatic weapon.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to defend ourselves against equal, weaponization, I guess. Whatever somebody brings at you, you should have the right to match that, to protect yourself, your property, and your family.
Yeah.
I'm not telling people to go out and get automatic weapons, but I am asking people to defy what an assault weapon is, because they're so fixated on an AK-47, AR-15, an M16, all these things. Well, this microphone could be an assault weapon if I throw it at you. My glass of water could be a weapon. If my spit, if I spit on you and you call the sheriff's department, I will be arrested for assault with a bodily fluid.
Yep.
So until the Congress, who's supposed to be all these rich, wealthy, name-recognized, smart people, can identify what an actual assault weapon is, I think they need to shut up. Yeah. A baseball bat, a baseball, a knife, a plate, a coffee mug, anything that you can get your hands on to hurt someone becomes an assault weapon. And people need, it may be a direct truth, but people need to open their ears and accept that is the truth. A vehicle can be an assault weapon. Anytime you go after someone and hit them with your car, or, road rage, that in its own sense is assault.
Yeah.
So we have to understand what these things really are and stop being woke, stop being blinded by the truth, and learn the ability to accept the truth, no matter what it is. If it's put out there and you fact check it, accept it. Now, there are conspiracies. There are people that claim this, that claim that, and they try to fact check it, and they really want you to believe it. Like Kamala Harris. I have another name for her, but I won't say it. Said the border was fine. The border is secure.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the border and spent 31 days. And these are the facts. And if anybody want to question me or want to see the evidence, I will provide it for you. I saw everything you can imagine. When Title 42 expired, I was standing toe-to-toe with the Rio Grande looking at Mexico and Eagle Pass, Texas. What appeared to be 7,000 people there waiting to rush into this country. And I had 11 National Guard armed men behind me, locked and loaded. And I said, is this really necessary? And they said, yes, sir. You are a representative running for office in the United States. Our orders were to protect you. If anyone touches you, we will handle it.
Wow.
And I said, okay. We've seen drugs come in. We've seen weapons confiscated. We've seen people drowned. We've heard rape taking place on the other side of the river. We've seen the human trafficking. We've seen the smuggling of children. We've seen it all. And it's not just Eagle Pass. We were in Yuma, Arizona with the Florida Congressman, Matt Gaetz, the guy down here in Ohio, Jim Jordan. We were down there with them in Yuma, Arizona. And then last year I went to San Diego. It's amazing what you see in that stretch of land coming into this country. And then you hear stories like Laken Riley, the young lady that was murdered in Georgia. And here's the truth that none of you want to hear. You all paid for that. You funded that. When you pay taxes to the corrupt federal government that gives your money to illegal immigrants, entices them to come here for free medical and free shoes and cell phones and jobs. You're enticing them to come here with our tax money, and then the bad ones get here and they kill an innocent woman. That's on us.
Yeah.
That's on us 100%. We had a woman shot and killed point blank who had 5 children over in Grand Rapids by an ex-boyfriend who was deported by Trump and brought back in by Biden. And Kamala Harris wants to say the border is secure.
Yeah. Well, and I just watched the confirmation hearing of Kristi Noem that is going to be Homeland Security. And over again, she said that the border is not secure and Biden has completely failed. And to my shock, actually, not one Democrat argued with her about that.
They can't.
Not one Democrat said that, no, the border is secure. Like, they all know it's not secure.
Right.
But getting back to Michigan, well, I do, like we were talking about the Constitution. So I am very much a free speech absolutist. So what are your thoughts on the First Amendment? I know that's pretty broad, but do you have any thoughts?
I do. The First Amendment is life to me. Freedom of speech, freedom of representation, freedom of religion. This is life. When you live in the land of the free, these are the 3 rights that are afforded to us that allow us to be who we want to be. And I had a feeling you might ask me about this. So I looked up the actual definition of the word freedom. And I'll share it with you from Webster's Dictionary. Freedom is the ability to act, think, and say what one wants without the feeling of repercussion or enslavement. We don't have freedom in this country right now. When you have the IRS that can come after you because you don't pay your property taxes, evict you out of your house, that's not freedom. You've paid off your note, it's not freedom. If you get censored on social media, it's not freedom. TikTok being taken down is a violation of our constitutional right to express ourselves, our freedom of representation, to go on and dance and sing and mock people as comedy skits, or to just voice your opinion to 170 million Americans who are listening, and they take that away from us. Freedom of religion is also important because people have the right to believe in God or whatever the higher power that they choose, because we're not all nationalists here. We all come from somewhere else. Our families, our ancestry came from somewhere else with different religions, different backgrounds. And having that freedom in this country is recipe for freedom. So I'm a huge advocate for protecting the First Amendment, as well as the Second and the Fourth and a few others. But I don't think that you can take away our right to speak our opinion. And Whitmer has made it clear that if we give false information or misinformation about elections, we could be fined or jailed. And I think that's a violation also. And I think she signed that bill. So
yeah, and unfortunately, stuff like that. There's also one. I'm no lawyer, but how I read the bill was pretty alarming. That it wasn't just false speech. It was, if you even offend someone that is LGBTQ, then that is hate speech. And it's like, how do you know if you offended someone? Like,
Right.
how do you prove that? Like, I'm sure I can offend people all the time just by existing. Like, I don't know. People find any way to be
Right.
butthurt about something.
that's right.
So unfortunately, stuff like that, someone has to be injured. Someone actually has to be charged with something to be able to challenge it up to the Michigan Supreme Court.
Right.
So I think that's absolutely insane. Like, people, I don't know. I haven't read any stories that law has been executed in the way that is I'm fearful of, but I'm sure it's going to have its ramifications. So that's scary. And then
And the whole the pronoun thing that she signed a year or so ago. If you don't respect someone's pronoun, you can be arrested and pay a $10,000 fine. Listen, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and talks like a duck, it's a duck. If you're a man posing as a woman, I'm going to call you sir. Something's wrong there. I believe God created man and woman, and I also believe God didn't make mistakes. God is the only perfect example that we have in life. That's my belief. And I'm not going to push that off on anyone, because you have the freedom to believe what you want. But it was an issue on the floor in Congress. Well, what is a woman? What describes a woman? And if I offend you, I'm sorry, but a woman has ovaries, uterus, fallopian tubes. Not every woman can produce children, so that's invalid. But the reproductive organs are there. A man cannot have a baby. A transgender man can have a baby because he's a woman, right?
yeah, and I mean, going off on freedom, I don't really care if a guy wants to wear a dress. I just don't care. That's what freedom is in this country. But I do have a problem with children getting puberty blockers.
Yes, ma'am.
That is a problem.
18.
They just don't know. I went to school with someone who thought that they were a cat, and we didn't affirm that. No one in my school affirmed that. And thank God, I told my mom recently, thank God I grew up in a time where just being a tomboy was okay, and you weren't questioning, oh, do we need to go get you puberty blockers
Right.
and you become a man. Thank God I didn't grow up in that time. But yeah, I think when you're a kid, you're vulnerable, and the state does have a responsibility to protect that child if parents are basically going to abuse the child that way. But once you're 18, I really don't give a shit what you do. Just don't hurt me, and we're good. That's kind of my philosophy in life. I mean, even in my neighborhood, people will park on their grass, and some Karens in the sub get so upset, oh, it looks so awful. I don't care. You're not bothering me. as long as I can walk my dogs on the sidewalk, I'm fine.
Right.
Okay. But like, I don't care what you do. Just leave me alone.
Right.
That's my philosophy. Maybe that's a little libertarian of me, but, just don't hurt me and we're good. But I think there is a responsibility to protect children that are vulnerable.
And I want to make a comment to that, and then I want to ask you a question. Whitmer, my comment is Whitmer just passed a bill that 14-year-olds in the state of Michigan can change their identity on legal documentation, their state ID. They can say that they're a boy if they're a girl or vice versa without parental consent. And because the age of adulthood is 18, I think that is a violation of the Fourth Amendment that says parents have the right to parent their children without interference from the court unless a parent is deemed unfit. You're taking our parental rights away from us. If my son were to change his identity on his driver's license, I would be pissed. And I would fight the state tooth and nail all the way to protect my child. If my child thinks that he's a girl, we need to have a different conversation. The whole LGBTQ thing, I don't care what you do behind closed doors in your home. If you want to if you're a man, you want to hold a man's hand in public, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that you are so entitled to have parades for an entire month and streak around naked in front of children, where if I walked around naked in my neighborhood, I'd get arrested, rightfully so, because you don't want to see all this. But why do they get extensions to that? Why do they get privileges to do that? We don't even give our veterans a month. People who have served and died for this country so that you could change your identity don't get a month.
Yeah.
And that's an issue with me. I don't, like I said, I don't care, gay, lesbian. You know, I have friends that are gay and lesbian, and they're amazing people. I love them to death. They don't hit on me, which also helps, right? But they have their life, and they take care of themselves. They're beautiful decorators. Their homes are awesome. They dress in style. I love it. I love it. But don't take it to my children. When you start educating our children in school about the ability to change your gender or to be gay, you're going against my values as a parent and your public education. We're paying you to educate our children. And if that's the topic of your education, then maybe our school funding needs to be looked at. Because that's a parent's right. That's a conversation for a parent, a child, and a therapist. Not a principal or an assistant principal or a biology teacher or an algebra teacher. That's not where that should take place. You want to talk about sex at school? Talk about the reproduction. I don't know how it was here in Michigan when you were a kid. When I went to school, they gave us a pink book and a blue book, and they said, read them. They identified the names of the body parts, what they are and what they do, and that was the extent of it.
When I was in 6th grade, we were divvied up, boys, girls in different classrooms, and girls just learned about their period. That's it. And not even like everything. There's a lot even about women's cycles that I didn't learn until I was an adult, which was crazy. But no, I never had like sex ed in school. I definitely think school needs to be just about the basics, the education, the math, the reading, the science.
Writing.
And writing cursive. That is one conspiracy that I say I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the getting rid of cursive really scares me because what is written in cursive? Our Constitution. So if these kids can't even read our Constitution, that's really scary.
It's that, and they can't even sign their name on the back of their paycheck. You know, I know a lot of us get direct deposit, but you know, in the summer, my kids want to go mow grass. They get a check from the homeowner, right? Or they get cash. When cash is fine too. But to sign that check, my kids have no clue, right? And they're 16 and 14. Their writing is like this on a keyboard. Well, as governor of Michigan, I would like to get back to traditional education. I'd like to bring back the core values of no Chromebooks, but textbooks, reading, writing, math, social studies, and bring in the trades that we used to have. In Texas, we had a welding class, an electrician's class. We had a carpentry class. We had an automotive class. If you promote trade schools in high school, they should be getting credits towards a trade school trade, just like you get a college credit for taking certain classes.
They do that. Like my sister just graduated high school and she was in welding, and for whatever reason, she didn't qualify to get credits for trade school, but other kids were. And it was funny because Whitmer actually went to her school to go look at this state-of-the-art welding program. That whole week, the kids cleaned the welding room for Whitmer's appearance. And then during that hour, they went to a different classroom and did nothing. They just did they were on their phones the whole time, while Whitmer went and did her photo ops in the welding room.
Wow.
And they had like one kid in there. And it's like, okay, like, what are you doing? Right. Why wouldn't you go visit all the kids like while they're actually in class? So that whole week, they didn't learn anything. They were cleaning and preparing for Whitmer's like big photo op. So I just thought that was crazy. It's just like,
I agree with you. And I look back at George W. Bush. Think what you want about George Bush when he was president. When 9/11 happened, where was George W. Bush? He was in an elementary school reading a book to an entire class of kids when Secret Service came up and whispered in his ear. You saw the look on his face. He went right back to finish the story and then got up and attended to the nation's needs. Why is it that politicians like Whitmer and Benson and Nessel feel the need to say, I'm going to go look at this welding class, but I don't want the kids anywhere around me? The kids are the ones that are looking up to you. Those are the ones you're supposed to be protecting because they are tomorrow. They are the future of our state. And I know the story you're talking about, and it's appalling that she just can't be around people. I don't know if she's a germaphobe. I don't know if she just has issues being around a bunch of people. Because when I see her, like she was promoting the Lions the last few days, it was always her and one other person. You know, maybe two other people, and that was it.
And then when COVID happened and everyone's locked up, she's out partying.
Hey, can you have my husband put his boat in the water so we have the bay all to ourselves up here? No, and then she goes on TV and she says, our schools were only locked down for 90 days. My kids were homeschooled for 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. I disagree with it 100%. They shut down everything and said, stay home. Did I listen? No. Maybe I'm a rebel. But again, I fall under the guidelines of freedom. I will come and go as I please. And I'm not going to be controlled by a treasonous governor or government. So the whole idea of running for governor is to give the people what they desire the most, which is their true absolute freedom. Stop controlling them by silencing them and not letting them vote on big decisions like the solar farms up north, bringing in Taiwanese businesses to Michigan. And if you paid attention, Taiwanese businesses bring in Taiwanese workers, not Michigander workers. Why do we have an office in Taiwan? Is Michigan made in Taiwan now? I will close that office. We will get back to Michigan being made in the USA. That's where we are. That's who we are. We have the ability to be next level in the United States where other states will follow us. And one of our proposals is to end property taxes. You know that there's 7 other states talking to us right now that are willing to do the same thing? If I were to get into that office and on day one end property taxes, we would be the first in the state.
That would have to be an act of Congress, though. That's not just something the governor can do alone.
Well, the governor does have the executive order, and as long as it doesn't violate the state's constitution or the U.S. Constitution, the House and the Senate can't touch it. That's why executive orders work.
I don't know. I would disagree with you because I think Congress holds the purse, so they're in charge of anything with money. But yeah, I did want to get into this with you because property taxes. My property taxes are the reason why I got into politics. When I first moved to this town, I had my homestead wasn't filed properly. So my property taxes were double what they were supposed to be. And through that, it made me really start to pay attention to what I was paying for. And property taxes, I mean, I definitely think that's why you've gotten so much traction so fast, is because it is a very strong proposal. And I mean, I'm all for getting less taxed. Like I said, I'm sure at least half of what we bring in is taxed in some way, whether it's gas tax, sales tax, I mean, everything. But my property taxes, if you look line by line, that's what funds the schools primarily. So your local schools are paid for through your property taxes. I actually live in two towns. I actually live in a village and a township. So that gets funded through property taxes. So like 2 million of our budget just goes to our police. So that's what pays for it. Then I have county taxes, which is just ridiculous. We don't get like any services from the county, but we still have to pay county taxes. We pay for the DIA, I want to say the Detroit Zoo might have some money that goes there, but stuff like that. So with your proposal to end property taxes, where does all of this stuff get funded from?
Very, very great, very good question. First, property taxes never allow you to own your home. This beautiful home that you and your husband have will never 100% be yours. You could pay on this for 30 years. And 2 years after you've paid off your note, if you don't pay these said property taxes, the state will come foreclose your home, put you out on the street, and they won't think twice about it. Mm-hmm. You are leasing this land and this house with the opportunity to say, this is home, and the government's allowing me to live here.
And I have an HOA, so that doesn't help anything.
That doesn't help either. So what we're promoting is true land and home ownership, which ties into the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Home ownership is a pursuit of happiness. It brings financial wealth. It brings stability, family, new babies, should you guys do that, memories. This is where it happens. It should be yours. Where do you replace the money? Property taxes are only paid by property owners, right? Mm-hmm. How many people rent and don't pay property tax?
Well, I mean,
they pay in the form of their rent.
Yes, yeah.
But still, they're not contributing directly. They're paying a landlord. Landlord raised the rent so the landlord can cover it. What have you? State income tax, everyone pays. Mm-hmm. Everyone. So instead of collecting property tax from 60% of the people that own a home, now you can take the state income tax and start allocating more funds to each city, township, because you're looking at 100% of the people that live there. Mm-hmm. Libraries. Stop giving out free library cards. Charge $5 for a library card, $10 for a library card. What's in the library that I can't get online? What's going on at libraries? Cross-dressers reading stories to kids? I don't promote that. I don't support that. Libraries hold the libraries for community events. Mm-hmm. They have people come there to do speeches, or they have local organizations come there to do budget meetings or whatever. Charge them a small fee to do it. Mm-hmm. The Detroit Zoo, they get donations from people from all over the state. You can raise the price by $1.50, $2 an admission ticket. I don't care. The states and the townships, or the cities and the townships, will have to find ways to recoup that money. Look at all of the consumer goods right here that are tax exempt. How many businesses are here that are tax exempt because they were told, you come here, we'll give you the tax break so you don't have to pay taxes?
Yeah, the big three, this always makes me upset because the big three just last year got like $1 billion free from the state. And I always joke, like, am I a shareholder? Like, am I going to get dividends that my money is going into these companies?
Should I get a free card?
So yeah, I want to hear your opinion about that too. Like these corporate handouts. I personally don't think that that's capitalism. Capitalism is like survival of the fittest. If you're a good business, you survive and thrive.
Right.
If you don't do good business, then you get shut down, and that's that. But right now, it just seems like all of our money goes to the big three primarily. And even for like a battery plant, that first they said they were going to make a battery plant, Then they said, no, we're not going to. They were still going to get the money. And now they said, okay, we'll do a smaller scale battery plant. Ford said they were going to do. I don't know where the project is today, but
it's the palace, where the palace used to sit. That's that big project going on right there.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then there's a bunch of builders who got a lot of state funds with the promise that they're going to build housing and stuff, but they get our money to build the infrastructure to sell it for a profit. Why do they need our money in the first place?
Why do they? The thing with property taxes is it opens the ears of business owners and corporations all over the country. Right now, we are losing people and businesses at record rate moving out of Michigan. To be the first state in the country to not have property taxes, it will entice these corporations to come to Michigan. We're not going to give you a tax credit, tax break. We're giving you ownership. You don't have property taxes. So whatever you're paying in Arizona or Oklahoma or Florida or whatever, you come here and that goes straight to your bottom line. That is straight up profit for you.
So
So we'll actually increase the economy because we're bringing businesses in, and when the businesses creates jobs, and people will start moving back to Michigan, knowing they can buy this house and own it without property tax, and that frees up a lot of money for you. Now, let's say you're paying $4,000 a year in property taxes. When we put it on the cities and the townships to find other ways to collect the tax, you may end up paying $1,500 instead of $4,000. And if that's the case, how much did I just save you by not having property taxes? And we're having 100% of the people contribute instead of just homeowners. I also want to get rid of MDOT. I think MDOT is the biggest scam in the state. They take billions, and our roads are still shit. Give the counties the jurisdiction. Every county road butts up to a county road. It's just the way it is. If the county has the ability to collect the money for their infrastructure and their roads and bridges and highways and do it themselves, it'll get done faster. It'll get done better. Right now, when a contractor, like Genesee County wants to repair part of 69, they got to send a proposal to the state. The state may get that proposal in 8 or 9 months. The proposal allocates for $300 million. The state goes through the budget and says, we don't have $300 million. We'll give you 120. Do the best you can. Well, by giving 120, they go out and fix a section of the road. Next year, the year after, they got to do it again. They're not fixing the roads properly. If the counties collect the money, they don't wait on the proposal to be seen. They don't wait on the allocation of the funds, and they're free to pick and choose the contractors they want to do the jobs. The biggest problem with road repairs in Michigan is simple. It's asphalt. We have 2 asphalt companies in the state, and they are price gouging the hell out of asphalt, where it is now $1 million per mile per lane.
And I heard that we're like running low.
We are. We need to bring more asphalt to Michigan. We need to bring more excavation companies to Michigan. We need to produce more asphalt. A few years back, I think it was 2017, 2018, it was about $227,000 per lane per mile. Now we're paying over $1 million per lane per mile. Now, the asphalt companies are not going to like me. They're not going to support me. They're not going to vote for me because I'm bringing competition in to make them bring their dollars down. But price gouging is a federal crime. You're taking advantage of the situation. And that's against the law. And Whitmer allows it to happen. But Whitmer, to hold you accountable, where did you spend our money? You were talking about schools getting funded with property taxes. Where is the liquor tax? Where is the tobacco tax? Where is the weed tax? Yeah. Where's the lottery tax money going? That's why we want the zero tolerance spending bill, so we can see, all of us can see how much from lottery went to every school district in the state. Is it enough? Maybe it's too much. We can pull back a little there because we're getting a lot from tobacco and alcohol, and we're putting all this money. Right now, we're not putting the money where it's allocated to go. It's going in pockets. I'll ask the people that are watching on Facebook and on your podcast, do you realize how much dark money there is in this state?
Yeah, because we're very much a purple state. They're trying to make us a blue state officially. Because if we become a blue state, I mean, federal elections, they'll pretty much always be blue.
Right.
So, there is so much dark money that is funneled through this state. When abortion rights were passed on our enshrined in the Constitution, there was like $22 million from out of state that was used for that effort, and I didn't even know about that till like afterwards. I'm like, okay, well, if people are going to collect signatures and get it on the ballot and vote for it, that's great, but it's actually like outside influences that really did that. So there's people, I think Bridge, Michigan just posted that like 85% of all the money used in the Michigan congressional races was from out of state. And that's very typical. So
what you're saying is we don't have a democracy. Because if we did have a democracy, it would automatically be on the ballot for the people to vote on. It's the people's state. It's we the people, not we the government, not the state of Lansing. It's the state of Michigan. And the people have got to have the right to vote solar farms, wind turbines, price of eggs, going cage-free eggs.
Yeah, and
these are things that should be voted on by us, not the corrupt, career politicians that are in Lansing that have shown to make poor decisions on our behalf.
So the Gaylord, they wanted 400 acres of forest torn down to put solar panels. And I'm actually for alternative energies, but we need to do it smart. We're not like cutting down forests. If the ultimate goal is to reduce greenhouse gases, that is actually increasing greenhouse gases. The forest and taking care of our land is the best way. Like literally the forest takes in carbon.
It's the most green energy that Mother Nature provides,
So I made a post that ended up going viral about it, and it caused so much uproar that now Michigan is taking a step back and saying, okay, no, we're not going to do that project anymore.
Well, I'd like to piggyback on that because I did the same thing, and it went viral as well. I did it on Thursday before that Monday when the third party backed out. And from Thursday to Sunday, we had like 90,000 people go, and I put a phone number up for them to call and voice their opinions. And then ironically, Monday, the leasee backed out. So it's efforts like yours. It's efforts like mine. It's efforts of the people. Once we educated them of what's going on, they stood up and they stopped it. Well, now Roscommon, 1,000 acres. Petoskey, Charlevoix, they're looking at 4,000 acres.
Yeah.
They're fracking minerals out of the UP with a Chinese company. These are all things that people don't want, and the UP thinks that they're left out. They should be their own state because government doesn't work for the UP.
Yeah.
And I have a ton of support up there. We have to get back, if we're going to practice democracy, we have to allow the people to have a voice. And you can't have a voice if your representative doesn't answer the phone. You can't have a voice if your representative doesn't call you back or email you back.
Yeah, it is really hard for me to get a hold even of my local elected officials. It is absolutely insane. Like I live in a town of 6,000 people and my elected officials can't even pick up the phone.
Right.
But I had a lot of influence in the RFK Jr. campaign, a national campaign. I could talk to people in the campaign like pretty much whenever I needed them. But I can't even get a hold of my elected officials in a 6,000 person town.
Right.
So that's insane to me.
And it's like you said on your post the other day, your follow-up post. I put this message up for Mr. Hudson, and we talked within the hour.
Yeah.
I do that with everyone. I scour social media. When someone makes a comment that is positive and comes from a good place, I respond to them immediately. If it's not like where I could respond, I will at least acknowledge by hitting that like button. And they could see that I liked it. They could see that I read their message. And I don't want to miss an opportunity to work for the people. I don't want to miss an opportunity to talk to the people and let them know that I can tell you one thing that no one in Lansing will tell you. And from the military, I got your 6. I got your back because I'm one of you. I'm from the same crop you're from. I live with the same laws, the same taxes, the same structure, the same control that everybody else lives from. And I think it's a dynamic story that a truck driver wants to stand up and make a change. I think policies that we have benefit the people. It puts money back in their pockets. And who does it hurt? It hurts the government, because as a conservative, we believe in strong military, secure borders, and a good economy for all of us. And a good economy is when you have the money to go out to eat and support that small restaurant. When you go to the oil change place and you support those guys that are changing your oil, or you go to Walmart and you buy local farmed meat, eggs. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I definitely, we definitely need a wide range of businesses in Michigan right now. We really, like, once I graduated college, the options basically, I went to Central, so the option really was Dow Chemical. Like everyone at Central goes to Dow, but I didn't want to work for them. But other than that, you have the big three: healthcare or mortgage. So like
auto insurance.
So it's just, there's not a lot of diversity. I went to school for marketing, and there's no marketing jobs here. If I wanted to work at a good marketing company, then I need to go to either Ohio or Pennsylvania. So I'm assuming your answer to my question is going to be the no property taxes will bring in diverse businesses.
They will, because people that, they want to set up shop, they're paying, the lease for the land. They're paying taxes on that lease. And that causes the products to be more expensive. Okay. When you can bring in a company that doesn't have as much expenditure or as much cost to make their product or manufacture their product and get it out the line, it will be less expensive. Property taxes on these big businesses, the size of the buildings, the size of the land, is huge.
Well, a lot of times they get tax incentives from the local municipality to bring their business there. But I do want to ask you too, like, for example, like, because you kind of said like maybe the schools will be paid for with all of the state tax that is brought in through lottery, whatever. Like, let's say my local police, how would we fund that?
I mean, it's all the same. I think what they should do is the cities, let's say the city of Flint, it's the largest city in this area. They should have a general fund that the majority of their money goes into. And from that fund, we should allocate out of that fund school, police, paramedic, highways, this, that. And we should be able to show why it's that amount and is there enough funding to do that. I love our law enforcement. I do. My father was a chief of police before he got his sand and gravel business. My uncles were cops for 32 years. They were twins, had the same job in the same precinct and the same department for 32 years and retired on the same day. They got a letter from Ted Cruz in Texas. Thank you for your service, the both of you. I love our law enforcement, but our law enforcement needs to be held accountable too. Put protect and serve back on your car. Put the people as a priority. Make us safe. You are the public military of the United States in every township. When somebody calls for a complaint, don't say, well, that's not as high up on my list as this domestic violence case going on down the street. If I feel threatened, I feel threatened. You've got more than one officer. Speeding, get on it. Everybody, myself included, in Michigan, drives 80 miles an hour down 75 or 23. Get on it. They got to do their job. I'm all for funding and making sure that they have the resources they need, but they have to do the job. And when you're looking at local taxes, you're looking at the counties and the cities and the townships that are collecting these taxes locally rather than on a state level, it'll be easier to force them to allocate those funds. And again, if the boosters are going to pay $100 million for a football field, then I think we're asking the wrong questions. It's not
Yeah.
where's the money coming from. It's why isn't it going to this or to that or to this? Why are we putting fake grass on football fields when there's other issues to address that $100 million for one school would have addressed probably 85% of them. But again, do you know the number of dollars that come into the state from cigarette tax?
I do not.
That's what we need to know.
Yeah.
And if it's not 100% going to the schools, why isn't it? That's where that audit comes in. Tobacco, alcohol, lottery, and what was the other one we said a while ago? Tobacco, alcohol, the lottery tax. There's another one there. Marijuana tax. Those were specifically supposed to have, like you collect $10 million from the weed tax. So much of that was prioritized for education, for schools. Are they getting the 10%? Are they getting 6%? What are they getting? We have to go through with a fine-tooth comb and determine where all this money is going. And again, with no property taxes and you're collecting from 100% of the people in that city or township, it takes a large burden off the homeowner.
So just to be clear, so property taxes go away. Are you saying that the state, everything the state takes in will get allocated to the local municipalities?
They'll collect them locally themselves.
So, but
The
right
state,
now they collect it locally through property taxes. So how will they collect it?
they'll find innovative ways, like we discussed. You charge a little more for the library for the zoo, charge for a membership at the library. Take these non-taxable goods that are going through the city and put a tax on them, a small tax. Those big corporations that are getting those tax breaks don't need those tax breaks if there's no property tax. So if you start taxing all those consumer goods, you're probably going to be in the plus margin with your revenue for the city and the state, the city and the township. Not to mention MDOT, you're not paying for that anymore. That'll be a county level. So we're cutting MDOT. That cuts, I'll have to look into it to get the number, but that's cutting a huge chunk out of the state's budget. Getting rid of annual auto tags on your car and just do it when you purchase your vehicle. That's cutting the size of the Secretary of State. When you cut a department, you're saving money. When you cut the DNR, you're saving money. When you squash Eagle completely, you're saving money. So if you're saving money, you don't need to raise as much money. Right?
Yeah, there's definitely, I think there's a balance to everything. We see this on both sides. Like the Democrats, they want to get rid of student loans, but it's like, okay, but they have to be paid for somehow.
And it's
like,
not your responsibility to pay for
away.
my son's student loan.
So in terms of like cutting property taxes, like the money still has to come somewhere. And I don't really see how we can raise like $2 million for our police just through like a library card or something.
That's why we have the audit and we spell it out for everyone to see what's being taken away from each county and each township and each city.
Yeah.
And we start putting it, because here's the thing, RAC, responsibility, accountability, and consequences. We know who's responsible. We got to hold them accountable and we got to imply the consequences. If you're not spending the money where it's supposed to go, the consequences, we're going to cut your funding. Michigan and Georgia, I'm going to ask you to give you a task. Compare the size of Georgia and Michigan. Population, revenue, home ownership, schools. We're almost identical. Georgia operates on a $61 billion a year budget. Why are we at $86.5 billion and we blew through a $9 billion surplus?
Yeah.
This state can be run at $65 billion, and that's plenty of money. You just have to make the appropriate cuts and hold people accountable for what they're spending.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. So yes, people are scared of change. I get where you're coming from. The question, the money's there. There is no shortage of money in Michigan. But if I give you $100 to put gas in your car and you put $30 in your car and you go to the grocery store and spend 30 on your dog for dog food, and then you take your husband to dinner and spend $40, did you use the $100 for what it was for? Mm-hmm. You used it for how you wanted to use it to gain the dog food and the dinner out with your husband, right? Mm-hmm. That's what our government is doing.
Yeah.
If for me to give you $100 under our administration, Anna, I'll meet you at Speedway. I'll put my debit card in and we'll stop it at $100. Mm-hmm. That's the accountability.
Yeah.
Is now you're restricted. We're looking at you, and like you see the guys on the side of the street begging for money. I've done that before. I haven't stood there, but I've given them or offered them food. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, I don't want your food. I want money. Well, when you tell me that, you want drugs, you want alcohol, you want cigarettes, and I'm not supporting that. I'll give you a burger. I'll give you a sandwich. I'll give you my lunch for the day because I didn't eat it. I don't want that. We have to start making sure that the people getting the money are using it at the pump in that analogy. Mm-hmm. And not, I can get by on $30 worth of gas for the next 3 days until I get paid. No, that's not what you asked me for. Mm-hmm. So holding them accountable and the consequence of cutting that funding. Next time you ask me for $100 because you took your husband out to dinner and bought your dog a bunch of dog food and only got $30 in gas. Next time, Anthony, can I borrow $100? No, I'm going to give you 50. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Being responsible with what we get. The money's there. Mm-hmm. Look at all the people, all Detroit, Wayne, Macomb, St. Clair Shores, Genesee, Grand Rapids, Kent County. Look at all these people. They're all working. They're all paying the state income tax. Where's that money going? Don't you want to know? Mm-hmm. That's my job as governor of Michigan, is to expose and exploit where our money is actually going so that we, the people, can determine, is that enough over here? Or can we pull from here to make this happen with the school? Can we pull from DNR to create a mental health program where people can have free mental health services in Michigan? How do we do it? We have the how. Now we need to know, is it going to work? Mm-hmm. Are the people ready for that kind of change? And I think I pay $300 a year for the registration on my truck. I pay $35 a year for my Harley. Now they want to increase it by $100. That makes my Harley's $135. And my truck is almost $400. So now I'm paying $535 a year to register a vehicle I've already bought, I've already paid for, I've already paid taxes on it. Yeah. Shouldn't have to re-register because nothing's changed on either one. The bike is still made in 2022, and the miles have gone up. It's depreciated, if anything. Yeah. And you're raising my tag.
I heard some states, they have registration and property taxes on their cars. I almost lost my shit when I heard that.
And Denmark has a plate that you pay for, and that includes your insurance. Wow. You pay it once a year. You're covered. Your insurance, your registration, all of that is on that plate. This idea came up because we have tractors and trailers that don't get renewed. A motorcycle is not even classified as a motor vehicle in the state of Michigan. So why are we insuring them and why are we putting tags on them in the first place? Mm-hmm. They won't change the classification to show that it's a motorized vehicle. So why are we doing it? Yeah. Why are we paying the Secretary of State all this money when, what do you see? You see kiosks popping up now, mm-hmm. right? And you can do 95% of your Secretary of State work on the internet. Yeah. So we don't need as many offices. You go into an office, there's 2 or 3 people working, and there's 40 people in there.
Yeah, I haven't been in an office in years.
Because you don't have to.
Yeah.
So when you cut the funding to the Secretary of State, you're opening up a large pool of money that can go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. That can be allocated to the state to help out with the loss of the property tax. That money's coming from your registrations. That money's coming from your income tax. That money's coming from everything you buy. Yeah. I mean, please don't be offended, but we are all small-minded as to how much money is being spent because we only see what we spend. We're not taking in the fact that there's 10, 11 million people in this state that are paying into all of this stuff. Plenty, 11 million people. That's just the voters that voted. I mean, we had, 9 million voters in the last gubernatorial race?
I don't know about those numbers.
Whitmer, I think, got 5 million because we wanted to recall Whitmer. And we have to have 25% of the votes that she received on a petition, and that came out to 1.125 million signatures.
Yeah. Yeah, she's going to be a hard one to recall.
You can't. You can't. They give you 60 days to get 1.2 million signatures, and they're going to go through them and disqualify them.
I think politics is mainly marketing. Marketing's my background, and she has great marketing. She's a little social media queen bee right now, and people look at her that she saved women's rights. I just think a lot of people are misguided. They don't understand her role. Actually, if anything, like we the people, like we collected the signatures, put it on the ballot, and voted in. Whitmer had nothing to do with that.
Right.
So, but I do want to move on to talk about the Freedom of Information Act. It's something I'm really passionate about. I do a lot of requests. It's just to get public records. I've done it in my town a lot. I've actually sued my local town for not providing me records, and it uncovered hundreds of records that they wrongfully denied me. And FOIA requests can even be text messages and stuff. Like anything in an official's function is what I call FOIAble. So you can get those records. And Michigan and Massachusetts are the only two states where the governor's office is not FOIAble. And Massachusetts, even though the law is written that the governor is not FOIAble, that governor still allows FOIA requests. So really, in my mind, it makes Michigan the most corrupt state in the union. So would you, and Whitmer promised this too, but she didn't do it, but would you sign a bill to allow the governor's office to be FOIAble?
100%. Because
that is transparency, all of the press too. Like that's how they uncover a lot of things.
I want the truth exposed. Mm-hmm. I want the lies exposed. I want the corruption exposed. I want the people who call Michigan home to know just how bad their representation has been over the years. I want no immunity for any elected official, governor included, prosecutors included. I want everyone in Lansing to be held accountable to the laws that are provided by the state and the United States of America.
Yeah.
You don't get to commit treason and not be charged. You don't get to kill people during COVID by putting them in nursing homes and not be charged. You don't get to steal our money for a personal book tour all over the country and not be charged for theft.
Yeah.
You have got to be held accountable for your crimes against humanity, violating her oath of office. Did she even submit an oath of office? A lot of people are asking that. I want full transparency in government, and that's what sets me apart from any other candidate. Eric Nesbitt, Cox, Dugan, all these guys.
I have just the only ones that I know officially. Eric Nesbitt, he is the Senate Republican leader, so he announced that he's running a few days ago. Former Michigan Attorney General Mike Cox. And he said that it's preliminary. He filed something that's like pre-campaign.
Statement of organization. So they give you an exploratory committee so you can see how the public receives you. And if it's there, then you go. But I think it's a waste of time. You got to collect 15,000 signatures. If you want to jump in the race, Cox, jump in the race. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of Nesbitt either. You know, I've heard Donna Brandenburg is going to jump in. I've heard Kevin Rinke is going to run. But let's be honest. I declared my candidacy 36 days ago. My paperwork wasn't filed because it's held up in Lansing. I have to get my petition headers approved for me to get my signatures. And until that's done, my paperwork's not complete. My articles of identity are notarized. My what's the one that he just filed? The organization, that's completed. My affidavit of identity is done. My financial records are done. Everything's in limbo until I get those headers done. But I officially announced I was running 36 days ago.
So, I mean, this kind of brings me to where I wanted to ask next. Like, what are the next steps? Because a lot of people, I want to make primary elections trendy.
They should be, because people don't vote in the primary.
People do not vote in primary elections. And when you like wonder, like so many people were like, how did we end up with Biden and Trump again? And it's like, okay, because you didn't go vote in the primary election. There were other options. You just didn't get out and vote. And primary elections are where we could probably see the most change. That's where you can get rid of the incumbents that are just lifetime politicians. So I tried to look it up. I don't think we have a date yet for the primary election in 2026.
I think it's August 8th or 9th.
Okay.
It's set because I had to put it on my paperwork.
Okay. So, hopefully, we're giving people quite a bit of time to get prepared for that. With mail-in ballots, it makes it super easy to vote in the primary. And so what are your next steps? Because I'm assuming you have to, is there something like within the Republican Party that you have to do, or do you just collect signatures to get on the primary ballot? Like what are the next steps for you?
I'm not doing anything within the Republican Party of Michigan. I'm
Okay.
running as a Republican because of my values as a Republican, but our Republican Party is a disaster.
Yeah. Both parties.
Well, they are, but the Republican Party is the only party that fights amongst itself and selects candidates to go up against other candidates. They entice people to run against people they don't like. The Democrats just say, hey, you want to run, you run. The Democrats are a well-oiled machine in the state of Michigan. The Republicans are falling apart. We have a couple options for the MyGOP chair coming up next month.
I was going to say, you talked about Runstead. Are you in support of him becoming the chair? Not that it matters. I'm just curious.
I really don't want to say. I like Runsfeld. I think he's a go-getter. He's a hell of a fundraiser. Greenlee is also a good fundraiser, good speaker. Then there's Michonne Maddock. I've had small conversations with her. I have respect for all of them.
Yeah. I
have respect for all of them, but I think because the Constitution affords me my right to vote whoever I want, and as a delegate, most likely going to be on the floor for that convention next month, it's probably going to come down to hearing their last little pitches. They all bring something unique to the table, but the party we need a new life. We need a new heartbeat.
Yeah,
we need a transplant.
It's Democrats too. I mean, I was shocked. My congressperson is Lisa McClain for the U.S. Congress, and I just don't. I've met her. I like her as a person. We're actually very similar. We're both Italian strong women, but I don't like how she votes. She votes to increase spending any chance she gets.
Right.
So I was actually very much with an open mind of who to vote for at this last election. And I went to meet the candidates and listened to the Democratic person, and he just had all his talking points. Like, even though in Michigan, like, we have abortion rights in our Constitution, and that's not going to change.
That's right.
He still was talking about it. Like, we need to protect women's rights. It's like, they're protected. Like, okay, he went through every single talking point that you hear all the time. And it's like, can we have something original, something fresh? So I ended up just voting for the libertarian person who was on the ballot. Not that it mattered, because Lisa McClain, everyone loves her in the thumb. So
yeah, she's a nice woman, and I'm hoping to sit down and have a conversation with her soon. She used to be District 9, which is the thumb, and I got a lot of people in the thumb that like what we do because I'm close. Genesee, Lapeer County is pretty close. I do a lot of riding out there on my bike, on my Harley, and people know the name. So I'd like to sit down with her and talk with her and try to garner support from her because, we're going to need it. I gave the speech last night at the convention for ABATE, and they had one of their lobbyists there who supports ABATE and works with them at legislation in Lansing. And he come up to me afterward and he goes, man, you're a breath of fresh air. He goes, you're saying things that we all want to hear, that we've been dying to hear, but no one's got the balls to stand up and say it.
Yeah.
And he goes, whether you win or lose the governor's race, you can make some waves in Lansing. You got a powerful voice. You command the crowd. People listen. Your charisma, the way you go after it is what the people have been asking for a long time. So I'm not up here acting. I'm not up here doing anything particular. I'm being me with the same concerns that you and all of you have. And now we're bringing it to the table, and we're going to bring it hard to the table.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about the FOIA request. That is radical. Making the governor exempt from the law.
Yeah, and she campaigned on the fact that she would sign the bill, and it's been passed.
She also said she'd fix the damn roads, quote unquote, Gretchen Whitmer.
And she still, the bill has been passed in Congress, but she refuses to sign it. So it's pretty alarming, and I'm just so sick. Everyone is sick of politicians saying they're going to do something and then they don't. So I'm watching Trump very closely this term because his first term, everyone excuses it by saying he just didn't know.
Right. There's a learning curve there.
And now he knows. So I'm going to be watching him very closely, and we'll see how that happens, like what happens. Like I said, I'm a Kennedy person, so my big thing is we need to get RFK Jr. confirmed. By the time this airs, that decision will probably happen already. But
he's gonna get through. He'll be fine.
He has to.
He'll be fine.
He has to, because I truly think that Trump won this election because of Kennedy, because he brought so many supporters. He really had the middle people, right. And most people in this country are actually independents. I think it was like 52% of people.
You're right. The majority of the voters
yeah.
in the country are independent.
Yeah.
So that's the target area. And I'll be watching Trump too, because he took one of my policies in July of last year, and that was the no tax on overtime. I presented that. I brought that to the people's attention in November of 22 when I myself were running in that race. Okay. A lot of people don't know that because it didn't get big in Michigan, but it got big in the rest of the country. And I met Trump in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And they straight out told me, we have people scouring the internet, listening to the people. And we saw your no tax on overtime, and we decided it was a great policy. I said, well, then do it right, do it justice, put my name on it. Give me credit where credit is deserved. And I can go back and I can forward you the clip where I said it. And you can put it up to, fact check the video, timestamp. And Trump didn't start talking about it until July of 24. And I put it up in November of 22. I think it's a great idea. It entices people to work more. You get time and a half with no taxes. That helps your pocketbook. That helps the economy. That helps you go out and spend more if you want to go out without struggling, But I have an eye on Donald Trump this term because, like you said, he just didn't know the first time. He wasn't a politician. Well, now he is. Mm-hmm. And now I think he's mad. I think he's more determined than ever. And I think he's 100% behind the people of this country. I think he is the better choice of what was offered.
Oh, well, I mean,
that election.
Yeah, what was offered, yeah. But
so the point, I guess what we should be looking at, not is he going to do the job this time, because he is. He's limited time, right? The clock starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
What's 4 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Gretchen Whitmer run at the office? Is that Don Jr.? Is it Tulsi Gabbard?
It better be my Tulsi girl.
I love Tulsi. I would support
Tulsi
if she ran on the Republican ticket. I believe she switched. She's become a Republican.
She will be our first female president. I am manifesting that now. Anytime there's criticism about her, it's made up because there's no facts.
She's such a well speaker too. She's phenomenal.
She's incredible. She served our country faithfully, and she will always have my support. She's a badass woman.
She is.
And if we had Harris as our first female president, it would have been a disaster for women, because even today, almost every single day, I get comments that women shouldn't be in politics. Women shouldn't run this. Women shouldn't do that. And there's so much misogyny even today. And if we had a failed first female president, it would seal our fate as women in politics, that her failure would be attributed to women's failure in politics, not
and women
hers.
have come so far
Yeah.
in recent decades. You know, we have female governors and we have female vice presidents. I mean, everywhere you go, a woman is doing the job that a man used to do. And I'm perfectly okay with that. We are all equal in the eyes of the Lord. We should all be treated equal at work. Women should be paid equal to men to do the same job. Men's or women's rights do need to be protected, in the sense that if this is one thing I don't like that you guys have to deal with. If I'm 18 and I want a vasectomy, I can get it done. Nobody asks a question. Just boom, done.
Yeah.
If you're a young lesbian woman or a straight woman who knows you don't want children, you cannot get a hysterectomy. Not until you're somewhere of the age of 33, 35, have children, and your husband's consent.
Yeah.
You don't need my permission. You don't need his permission to do anything in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And women need to be treated with that equal respect. Now, I am pro-life when it comes to the abortion. I think that where Tudor Dixon went wrong was the exception, no exceptions to the rule, what have you. I do believe that there are some scenarios. We have doctors that have gone to school for years to know how to do these procedures safely, to preserve mother's health, mother's life. And I think it should be instituted where it applies to the rule. But I don't think it's a birth control. And I think that's where it gets misused. I think a lot of people are, not being responsible and going out and doing what they do. And then they're like, oh, it's a quick fix. I'll just go down here and do it. No, that's not how that should work, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's one topic I never will debate someone on, because I don't think anyone is changing their mind at this point.
I don't think so.
I think everyone is pretty firm in what they believe. And frankly, in Michigan, it's in our Constitution that you can have an abortion anytime, at any week, like whenever you want. So a governor can't change that.
No, they can't.
So,
and people ask me about it all the time. I'm like, go see your state rep. That's who you got to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, even it would be pretty damn impossible to change our Constitution at this point. So it won't happen anytime in the near future, at least, because we have a split Congress, and it's just not going to happen. So that's something, even on the federal level, that they campaigned on so much.
Right.
The Supreme Court said it's a state issue. Our state has spoken. Our people have spoken. It's in our Constitution. And that's kind of that. So that's why I didn't really actually have like a question planned about it, because
no, I figured it, because I think we agree that we should utilize our Constitution. We should follow it. It's there for a reason. You want to build a house, you have a blueprint that tells you how big each room is, where the concrete goes, where to use 2x4s versus 2x6, or where the windows are going. And you follow that blueprint, and you build a successful home. The Constitution is our blueprint to running the state successfully. Let's get back to that.
And then just finally, one more thing. I don't want to drag this on too long, but in terms of just the environment, I mean, I know we talked about not putting solar panels, cutting down forests for solar panels, but do you feel like you have any responsibility, if you become governor, to protect our Great Lakes and our environment in general?
I have a 100% responsibility to protect what DNR is lacking right now. The Great Lakes are iconic to the planet. Biggest lakes in the world, right? It's a resource that feeds the state of Michigan. Our forests, our wildlife provide entertainment, food for our families. We have to protect the state of Michigan, not just the people who live here and call it home, but Michigan herself. And we will do everything we can. I've actually said on social media, I would uproot every solar panel in the state. Every wind turbine has got to go. People are like, well, why? And I was like, well, what's the point of a wind turbine? Why do they exist? To promote clean energy, right? Well, does anybody look at what fuels the wind turbine? It's oil. You have to frack the crude oil. You have to clean it. You have to load it, and you have to ship it across the country and put it in those machines so that everything is lubricated. There is enough oil, and you can do the research on this. There's enough oil in one turbine that will give 65 Dodge Ram truck pickups an oil change every 2 months for an entire year. And I use the Dodge Ram because I drive a Dodge Ram. 65 Dodge Rams, 7 quarts apiece, each one of those every 2 months for an entire year. So it's a contradiction. The solar panels, 10-year lifespan before they start contaminating the ground.
You know, some people have, with the project in Gaylord, you know, bringing a lot of feelings up and everything. A lot of people did post about how there are smart places to put solar panels.
There are.
I think on your roof is a good one.
Well, not these roofs, but like Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, parking structures.
And that's the thing. Parking is like the biggest thing because you already have a parking lot there. So you might as well, you put the overheads and you put the solar panels on those. I did talk to my fire chief. He did say that solar panels can be dangerous for firefighters because you can't turn off the power, and it can actually, he said that there have been firefighters that have been killed trying to put out those fires. So that does worry me, but I don't think oil is going to be forever. I definitely think we will run out one day. We don't really know what day that's going to be. So I do think alternative energy is important to look at, but we need to do it smart. And the best way, if you are concerned about the environment, if you're concerned about global warming, which I'm not, because this is our coldest winter or most snow winter in Michigan in years, but whatever. And then Earth naturally goes through heating and cooling cycles. But if you are a person who believes in climate change and it's caused by humans, the best thing you can do is take care of our land. Farmers shouldn't be putting chemicals on the crops.
Nope.
It's turning our fertile soil into just lifeless dirt. And if you want to protect our earth, you have to protect our forest, our animals, our farmland, our water. We need to get the chemicals out of our water. I'm very passionate about all those things. So I think some conservatives can get a bad rep that you don't care about the environment at all. But really, we just need to do things in a smart way.
We have to do
and
things
cutting
in a
down
smart
forests is not smart.
No, it's not. And the lifespan of these solar panels are 10 to 15 years. Let's say one of these solar farm companies goes to a farmer and they want to put these panels on the farmland, right? They pay a lot of money to the farmer to put these panels up. Well, if something happens to that panel, a hailstorm, something, the solar company says, we just leased the land from you. Those are your panels. You pay to fix it. God forbid the land gets contaminated by those panels. They go back to the farmer. The reason they pay the farmer all that money is because they want the farmer to maintain what's on the land, right? Do you know how expensive it would be to dig contaminated soil? Do you know how far down they have to go to make sure they get it all? I drive gravel trains for a living, and we're hauling the contaminated soil from the Gordie Howe Bridge right now. We have 30 trucks on that site, and we're just one of the companies that's doing it. I can name you 2 or 3 other companies that have just as much. It takes a lot. I mean, for a standard solar farm, you probably got to dig down about 20 feet.
Well, and they call it PFAS for a reason because it's literally a forever chemical. So even if you just move it, like runoff, it just gets into our water.
Right, it gets into the water and it goes downstream or whatever runs out into Lake Michigan or Lake Huron. It becomes a problem. Putting these things in the ground aren't suitable for Michigan. We don't have the weather for it. I think the percentage is like, 30% in the wintertime is all it works?
We don't even have a lot of sun. And that's what's funny. The sun came out yesterday, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I was blinded yesterday, but people don't go up north to see Detroit. People don't go to the UP to see Livonia. Yeah. And that's what they're getting. Yeah. Dugan is putting panels up everywhere in Detroit. There's a farm right off of 96. Small one, but it's there. There's a big one off of 69 going toward Lansing. One off of 94 going toward Lansing. It is ridiculous that Michigan has become Solar Michigan. What is Michigan's slogan? Pure Michigan. Mm-hmm. Well, we're not pure if we're damaging and contaminating what we call home. Mm-hmm. We're cutting down forest and taking away ORV trails for the outdoorsmen that like to go ride the trails. We're taking away the trails that people like to hike on or like to camp on. And we're putting up solar panels that make this god-awful noise and are not good for the environment. When you talk about climate control, and I'll end it with this, we spent how many billions of dollars on climate control? And your point was spot on. It's what I would have said. It's just as cold today as it was 40 years ago in Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Winter is winter. Texas is just as hot in the summer today as it was 50 years ago. So that tells me Mother Nature's not cashing these checks. We still have tornadoes, bad ones. We had some really bad, maybe self-created hurricanes this past season. And it seems like there are more and more each year goes by. Mother Nature doesn't care about our money.
Well, and this is why I live in Michigan, so I'll deal with the wind hurting my face to avoid the tornadoes and the hurricanes and the earthquakes.
I will never go to Oklahoma because I don't like tornadoes. But I'm just, Biden says we spend billions and billions. It's a money laundering scheme, and people need to wake up and understand that that's exactly what happens. And if you don't think Whitmer, I call her Witless Whitmer a lot, and it just sticks in my head. But if you don't think she's not getting kickbacks on all this solar energy that she's putting up in our state, you're blinded.
I mean, DTE very much funds her campaigns and everything. So,
and that's the other thing. Thanks for bringing that up. DTE consumers are increasing their rates, and the point of solar and wind was to decrease our rates.
I think it was within the month that she announced that Michigan was going to go 100% clean energy, I think by 2040 or something like that. Within the month, was it not DTE? No, it was. I think it was DTE said that they are increasing their rates like within the month that she announced that. So
it's like Walmart. They put in all those self-checkout stands so that they could reduce labor, the cost of labor, so they could bring the cost of food down on the aisles. Didn't have that effect. Now you go and you got smaller conveyor belts for a buggy full of food, and you're constantly, running out of room. You're scanning it yourself. You're bagging it yourself. And I'll tell you this: I was at the Walmart in Grand Blanc, and I got kicked out of the break room because I was exhausted after buying my groceries. And I figured, well, since I work here, I'm going to go sit in the break room. I expect a card to the Christmas party. I expect an invitation to, Valentine's or whatever. And the manager come in and said, "You can't be here, sir." And I said, "Then don't make me do your job."
Wow.
And it went viral on TikTok, or no, Facebook. I think it got 1.2 million views on Facebook. I mean, I will do stupid shit like that to get a point across.
Well, don't do stupid shit as governor, please.
As governor, I think the most stupid thing we'll do as governor is actually prove the accountability to all the wrongs. You can't fix something if you're not willing to put in the work. If you need nails and hammers to build a deck, you can't build a deck with tape and super glue. Mm-hmm. Some rednecks and hillbillies probably think they can, but you're not going to be able to.
Duct tape can cure a lot.
Windex and duct tape will fix almost anything coming from Texas, I'll tell you. But if you want to fix what's broken, you have to start with changing the way you vote. Do your research. Do your due diligence. Listen to what people have to say and ask yourself, does this affect me positively or negatively? Am I saving money or am I having to work more to spend more money because they need it? My goal, my platform will put money in your pocket. When we change the car insurance to an at-fault state, the premiums go down. We do the one-time registration on your vehicle. We cut your property taxes. I bet I'm putting $6,000, $7,000 a year back into your pocket. Mm-hmm. You, as a homeowner, that pays all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We want the people to be alleviated of the burden, the stress, the struggles of anything financial. Yes, we all have to pay our part. We have to pay to make government work. But if we're going to pay government Government needs to be held accountable, and they need to do the job for us. And if they can't, then we get rid of them. It's that simple. How do you get rid of them? You said it earlier. You vote them out.
Yeah. So, well, I really appreciate you coming. We can kind of wrap up here. We went through a lot of your policies and everything. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you to learn more about you?
Well, I would start with TikTok, but that's gone bye-bye till tomorrow. I'm on Facebook, Anthony Hudson for Governor. I also have a personal Facebook page, Anthony Hudson. I'm on Instagram at Elect Anthony Hudson. We just opened a Truth Social account, which is at Hudson2K24. And we have X, and I believe it's A Hudson. I don't know what it is on X.
I don't know.
We'd have to figure that one out. You can search Anthony Hudson on X and it pops right up.
Yeah.
But altogether, thank you for having me come on your show. The analytics don't lie. We were looking last night. I was proving my point at the Abate Convention. Over 750,000 people have checked out my profiles on social media in the last 28 days. Nice. 541,000 of them just on TikTok alone. Mm-hmm. Facebook is up 260% since I announced that I was running. Instagram has gained another 1,800 followers since I announced. True Social, I have no idea. We're at 26 followers since last night because I told people I'm going there. But we are moving in the right direction, and people are putting faith in a common man. A man that has been driving a truck for 20 years. And when you drive a truck, you push the country forward in everything you do. You are moving a product from one point to the other, and you're allowing the cycle to keep moving forward. I want to lead this country from Lansing and push us forward to the next generation of wealth for all of us, with a beautiful state that is protected from UP to Toledo, and we from east to west. We want to make sure that our water's pure. When you're paying for it, you can drink it, you can cook with it, you can shower with it. Your food is clean. We've done the cheese thing at McDonald's, and it will not burn. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. So I believe we can be the change that we want to see, and I believe in my Donald Trump part, that we can make Michigan beautiful again. We can make Michigan a leader again. We can make Michigan affordable again. And of course, we can make Michigan great again. That's our goal. And we can do it, but we can't do it without the people, without you bringing me on your show, without you knowing who I am and supporting what we're doing. We can't do this without you. I'm not going to raise $10 million. I don't need it. I think I could win this race on 2, because 10 million is wasteful spending, and my goal is to cut wasteful spending. Yeah. And lead by example, not by luxury. So if you guys want to donate to our campaign, we have a website. It's electanthonyhudson.com. We also have PayPal, Cash App, Venmo at Hudson, the number 4, Governor 26. And we can only accept donations there of $25 or less per state statute. So if you go there, no more than $25. But we're going to be around. We have 5 speaking events coming up. I will inform you, let you know if you want to show up and talk to us, or video, or take notes, whatever. I'll keep you in the loop for sure.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Again, just as a disclaimer to my audience, I am not making an endorsement. I simply, with this episode, and my podcast name is If People Only Knew, and really what I wanted to drive home is that there are more than just what the parties tell us there are. Like I said, the Democratic Party is probably going to anoint Jocelyn Benson as the Democratic leader for this race. And that's why I think Mike Duggan is running as an independent. He probably got pushed out of his own party. So I don't know what the Republican Party is going to do with you. But I just want people to know, do your research. There's options out there. So, I mean, we obviously, I pushed a little bit at you. We obviously have some disagreements and stuff, and that's okay. I don't ever want my opinions to hinder someone else's opinions. Just do your research. Everyone has their own values. Look for what's important. And if someone thought that what you said was good, look, I encourage them to follow you. We have at least a year, before things really get going. So I would encourage people to start following people who are running now,
Right.
so you can see what they are like over time. And it's not just you show up or you get your mail-in ballot and you're like, oh, this name sounds good. Like start just following these accounts. That's a very easy thing to do that you can kind of see what they're doing over
Right.
time. And I really like, town halls. So, if you can get to a town hall of some sort or debates, anything like that. So yeah, that's really like the point of this. I really didn't know much about you when I reached out. I just saw that a lot of people liked you and I said, okay, well, let's get this party rolling,
Do you feel like you know more now?
I definitely know more
Well,
now.
let this be a lesson to everyone that watches this episode. We can have our differences, but we maintained respect
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
courtesy,
Yeah.
and we allowed each other to talk. Nobody got heated or upset or pissed off, and that's how we're supposed to be. If we
Yeah.
want to be in the eyes of the public, we need to know that even though we may disagree that plan is green, we can hear what each other says and respect what they said, but still maintain our own opinion.
Yeah.
And that has been lost in government. And that is why the Democrats and the Republicans fight against each other so much, is because they simply just can't respect the fact that when you take that suit off and you put your comfy clothes on, you are just another American within the state of Michigan.
Yep.
We're human, and we all have to coincide. We all have to learn to live together. So I was nervous. Thanks for keeping it real. And, if we ever get an opportunity to come back, just let me know.
Okay.
We will be here.
Yeah. And I don't know if I want this to be like my whole platform. I don't know if I officially want to extend an offer to other candidates, because that's not exactly why I started my show, is to like interview people all the time for campaigns. But like I said, the main goal here was just to show people that there's options out there. So I appreciate you coming on, and thank you everyone for listening.